or their culture. Um, and here's Bill Cosby saying that Eddie Murphy is doing it wrong. He's doing blackness wrong, which is, I mean, a ridiculous statement, obviously. Um, but the Cosby bit kind of analyzes Pryor and Cosby and Bruce and Murphy in this one bit, right? And it's just it's brilliant. I don't even know if he knew he was doing it, but he's basically saying like, this is how I'm black. Like Cosby can do his own thing, but this is how I'm black, right? And neither is right or wrong. There's no right or wrong way to be a thing. There's no one way. And there's certainly no right or wrong way to be a thing. And you could argue that Murphy is sort of, it's a crutch for him a little bit, that masculine, tough guy, sex symbol, black, you know, that it's hard to know with public personas if they're just leaning into it or that's who they really are, right? Um, but you know, he's basically fighting for his, this is me. Like, this isn't some bullshit thing that I'm doing for the public. This is me. So you're going to deny me myself because it doesn't look the way you want it to. Isn't that just as bad as a white person telling, someone who's not black telling me what to do or whatever? But then inside that, there's the, again, I don't know, maybe he did know about the bit, but he's on the phone with Cosby, and Cosby tells him, well, my son said your show is just filth, flarn filth. And it's literally the exact same thing that Lenny Bruce was talking about when he said, cops come to my show, they write down the curse words and the stuff that's sort of like, shocking. They miss all the context, they miss the rest of the bit, they miss the setup, they miss the, and then they go tell it to a judge. And the judge is like, what is this? It's not funny, it's just disgusting or whatever. Right? That's exactly what happens with Cosby and his kid. Kid goes, hears all the buzzwords, and like that's all he remembers. Comes back, tells Cosby, and Cosby's like, "You can't do that." Well, that's a conversation that he has with Murphy, and he's like, "You can't say all this stuff. This is what my kid said your show was." And he's like, "Are you stupid? Like, you can't just do a all cursing show where you just come out and say, kiss my ass, you know, shit, piss, fuck, good night." Like that, you get booed off the stage. Like, you can't do that. There's jokes in there. There's, you know, yeah, there's more than that. Like, Cosby should know that more than anybody. Like, a comedian should know that. So he's literally having this Lenny Bruce argument with Cosby. Cosby's the judge, his son is the cop, and, Eddie's Lenny Bruce. So there's all that going on, too. And in the end, he does the Pryor impression. It's like, because that's who Murphy wanted to be, right? Murphy didn't. Murphy wanted to be Pryor, not Cosby. And again, this is sort of a fragment of that movement where it was like, you know, if you were choosing between Pryor and Cosby, that said something about you, right? Pryor was a badass, and Pryor was, a black man, and Cosby was this sellout, and Uncle Tom, whatever you want to call it. And like that, just if you start pulling at that thread, you end up in this really this psychological mess that comes with being black in America. It's like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you are successful without, you know, leaning into the stereotypes, then you're some kind of sellout or you're not black enough, right? But if you do the other way, like Eddie Murphy, now you're perpetuating these stereotypes, and you're a horrible example, and right. So like, what? How do you do it? You know. So yeah, that's the big thing. Murphy stuff. Yeah, again, watch the Raw stuff if you get a chance, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Because a lot of this might sound like bullshit. Um, just Murphy has this aesthetic where he's just like he's interpreting this move toward equality as vindictive. Like women seeking equality is somehow at the cost of masculinity for some reason. Like that's not a logical, that's an irrational jump to make. I think. Um, in fact, I think we'd be in a different place as a culture if men could let go of their own insecurities about masculinity and femininity. Like if Eddie Murphy was like on board with it and not treating it like, oh my God, they're coming for my money and my sexuality and my, you know, my manhood or whatever. Because he talks about like, you know, what was the women unifying is a problem too. And these this bit that he does about getting married and all this kind of stuff, like women talking to women is bad for men. Like, is it though? Like really? And he goes off on all this stuff because the culture was moving that way. I mentioned earlier, but like he mentions music, like um, Janet Jackson, like "What Have You Done for Me Lately?" Um, Madonna, right? I'm a material girl living in a material world. Um, and then I can't remember who sings it, but someone like, you gotta have a job if you want to be with me. And I'm like, really? Like that's bad? Like a woman being like, I mean, if you want to be with me, I'd like you to have a job. Like that's something that we're fighting against. Um, yeah, it's fucked up that I need to have a job to have a, have a girlfriend or a wife or something. Um, so yeah, um, basically with these shock comics, they, I think they strayed too far from the core ideas of Lenny Bruce and Pryor and Carlin to some extent. They strayed away. They were resistant to a culture that was changing around them, not just resistant, like belligerent about it. Um, so they felt threatened by something that really isn't a threat. Um, and Eddie Murphy in these two performances really, I think, without saying it, he says it. So that's again, I'm done. But I apologize for messing up that whole thing. Um, but keep them coming. Keep the comments coming, and I'll talk to you guys